The lunatics are attempting to run the asylum as the wave of change has flushed out a large majority of these insane individuals out of their own power. But as the tsunami claims plenty, there is much that is still being exposed. These freaks were running around like Arkham Asylum patients, doing whatever they wanted and thought that they could not be touched. From DEI programs specifically targeting anyone who wasn't white into power, and plenty of yes they themers still trying to police the language. And even Reddit is trying to turn itself into a woke stronghold by pushing developers out of their own game threads and calling everyone fascists. We'll start with Elon Musk, who responded to a post containing a Fox News article. This report stated that the Biden administration at the height of their power was giving over $1 billion in grants to anything that was DEI related. And this spread to everything from government, entertainment, all the way down to local education. Elon Musk would reply with, "Those are just the explicit DEI grants found. Vastly worse is that every education and research grant made over the past 4 years required DEI in one form or another." Unfortunately, he's right, because as I looked into it, that did seem to be the case. As stated in that article, researchers at the organization poured through nearly 4 years of publicly available data from the Department of Education to determine the number of grants and the dollar amount awarded to students and school districts for grants that had a clear DEI motive. Effectively meaning that a lot of these woke people, for lack of a better term, were gaming the system deliberately by pandering to the very things that have been destroying society for two sole reasons, first one being power, and the second of course, money. As the article further stated, just how this money was broken down into where it went exactly, according to the report, $489 million was spent on grants for race-based hiring. $343 million went toward general DEI programming and $169 million went to DEI-based mental health training and programming. All of this totaling just shy over $1 billion in total. This USAID scandal that, again, need I remind you, helped fund the entire agenda that tried to destroy things like video games, movies, and more, is currently having its skin flailed off by Trump's administration to discover where exactly all of this money was going to and why. Some examples given that stemmed from this $1 billion in this case of woke propaganda, it ranged from a school district in Philadelphia getting around $4 million for a restorative justice program that was led by a communist. Another $4 million was given for a 3-week residential, culturally responsive computer science summer camp. This just means that they were taking kids who weren't white on government-funded school trips fully paid for, which is, yes, racist, but they clearly did not care. And smaller, but still great amounts, like $38,000 were given to Michigan to push woke book propaganda onto people via a consultant, although a name for the consultant was not given. Then we have Michelle Exner, a senior advisor of PDE, or Parents Defending Education, which is a group that pushes against these DEI policies targeting youth specifically, said that these grants do nothing for the actual kids or groups that the money is supposed to help in the first place. But instead, the vast majority of these grants are simply used to line the pockets of administrators, universities, and consultants who pandered to diversity, equity, and inclusion due to how ridiculously lucrative it all was. These consultants made an absolute killing during the Biden era. As we know, this stemmed all the way into video games as well. Sweet Baby Inc., while not American, is a consultancy firm operated by former Ubisoft employees that claim that they do what they do to bring DEI into video games in order to culturally enrich them. Although, as we can see from most of the games they worked on, their efforts did nothing but ruin these games, and destroy any of the characters that don't fit their skewed view of what game narratives or the characters should be. Spider-Man 2, for example, ended up selling about half of what the 2018 game did in comparison. Sweet Baby, of course, worked on Spider-Man 2, and was founded in the same year that Spider-Man 2018 came out. So thankfully, at least the 2018 game had no connection to Sweet Baby Inc. in any way. You can tell the stark contrast between the Peter Parker of the 2018 game versus the 2023 one, and besides the sales of the game faltering due to Sweet Baby's involvement, even the recent PC release was a massive flop as well. it only managed to hit an all-time peak player count of around 28,000 players on Steam, which for a game that costed millions of dollars, about the biggest superhero in the world, that is absolutely abysmal. Dragon Age Veilguard was able to hit a player count equal to almost 3 times what Spider-Man 2 hit. And that game, by the way, still flopped badly, to put this into perspective for you with how Spider-Man 2 performed. Do you understand how cooked you have to be that Veilguard, of all the things in the world, is outperforming your game about Spider-Man? This is what the taint of DEI has done to our video games, as well as education and pretty much everything else. All of it has been stained and ruined by the poison of consultants who charge hundreds of thousands of dollars to do nothing but ruin your favorite franchises or poison kids' minds for no other reason than to line their pockets and to ensure that their next grift, so to speak, is within reach once they destroy the current thing that they're working on. The USAID scandal, which funded many woke things, has been cut off, and these people are clearly reeling. And the absolute rejection of this has even led to places like Reddit now claiming that they want nothing to do with anyone who is pro-Gamergate or pro-Trump, and no, I am not kidding. Reddit moderators are banning and blocking any discussion in threads that begin conversations surrounding DEI, USAID, or anything like that. In fact, they're going as far as banning users and claiming anyone who speaks about these things on Reddit are racist, and they will simply delete your comments if you try to push back. These moderators are clearly hell-bent on ensuring that Gamergate voices are silenced within their communities, and it is a violation of free speech. It's one thing to ban someone for pushing racism and posting slurs, but it's another entirely to simply block all discussion simply because you don't agree with what's being said in there. It comes off as childish and proves that, like always, these pro-woke people know that they can't win any argument when it comes to their beliefs being challenged on an equal playing field. They know that their logic is flawed, and thus they resort to what they always do, grasping for any amount of power that allows them to censor others instead of allowing them to exist of their own free will. This sadly isn't a one-and-done case, as the Lords of the Fallen subreddit has been hijacked by woke freaks as a knee-jerk reaction to CI Games, the developers, the Lords of the Fallen CEO Marek Tymiński, being more vocal and open to players' opinions. In case you don't know, Marek Tymiński asked fans on Twitter via a poll and simply asked if they should replace body type A or B options with male or female. People voted, and male and female won, so Marek said, okay, the fans have spoken, so we will update the game, and they did just that. It then led to a surge of sales for the game, beating their projected forecast by well over 40%. And now, because Marek Tymiński has decided to be more open with players and content creators, this is now bad, and means that he is now a fascist according to the literal subreddit of the game studio that he runs. Here's what the Lords of the Fallen mod said. The CEO of CI Games, Marek Tymiński, is actively supporting and promoting fascist ideology under the guise of catering to the player base. As a moderation team along with many gamers worldwide, we are deeply shocked and disgusted by the events of the past few weeks. They mean Trump, by the way. In response, we have removed all CI Games and Hexworks officials from the moderation team. However, we want to make it clear that those removed are honorable and decent individuals, and we have nothing but respect for them. Every interaction we've had with them since the game's launch has been nothing short of extraordinary. Unfortunately, this decision affects the wrong people. Our concerns are directed solely at the CEO, and at this time, no one else. So these moderators have taken it upon themselves to ban the people that made the game of the subreddit they run because they believe that these people are fascists. I can't believe this is a real thing, but it's true. This makes zero sense, considering why would you want to cover a game or foster the community if the game is made by what these mods deem as fascist developers anyways? Would it not be better to just leave the game or the fandom entirely if you apparently don't agree with how their CEO is doing things? And by the way, what the CEO did is not even bad. It's not like he's going around arresting people, attacking them, or anything like that. Now, it would be one thing if the CEO, for example, removed every skin color in the character creator besides the white skin tones. Yeah, that would probably be a cause for concern. But all he did was simply ask players if they wanted the character customization to refer to gender as male or female or body types. And the fact that this small change was all that it took for these clearly left-leaning individuals to respond the way that they did is ridiculous and very telling. It shows that these people don't see anyone who doesn't think like them as human beings. They literally just have two modes of viewpoints. You're either a left-leaning liberal yes man who agrees with everything that they say, or you're the literal devil incarnate. They said more, and here's what it says. Over the past several weeks and months, we have seen a significant increase in hate speech, misconduct, and violations of Reddit. What the hell is that anyway? Whenever content from these platforms is shared. Additionally, we have experienced an influx of users spreading fascist views, both on the subreddit and via mod mail. Let us be clear, we do not tolerate any violations of our behavioral rules, nor do we condone or support fascist ideology. Anyone engaging in such misconduct will face a permanent ban. What fascism or hate speech are you entailing exactly? Can we have examples of this so-called hate speech that you claim to be threatened by? Or is it simply that you are banning people for simply not agreeing with you 100% of the time? Cause that's what this comes off like. Not being a liberal, by the way, that is not hate speech, it's just having a different opinion. But these types have soaked themselves in the Kool-Aid for so long they can't really differentiate between what is normal or insane anymore cause they're too far gone themselves. Nothing that Marek Tymiński said of CI Games was fascist or racist or any other blanket term they want to use. The guy is a businessman. He simply wants to ensure that the products that his company sells are things that players actually want. And if players want male-female body type options over that of A and B, then it is within his power to do that and will it into existence. And I think clearly based on his decisions that it worked, since the game, like I said, sold 40% or more in its holiday period thanks to this single change. And to actually back up my claim, unlike these Reddit people who just lie and say, believe me that we've seen a massive influx of fascist speech with zero examples, here's Marek Tymiński, the CEO of CI Games, stating himself how his company saw that surge in sales following the gender change. This subreddit ran by clearly delusional individuals are now doubling down, stating that their subreddit is going to ban anything from X or Twitter, and one of the points they make says this: the spread of misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda has significantly increased. What they really mean is the spread of things we don't like or agree with or can't combat with our own logic because our beliefs are about as strong as soaked toilet paper is being challenged, therefore instead we will just ban you for convenience. And at the bottom here we can see that these new rules that they enforced will take effect immediately. Wow, how convenient, eh? So the CEO and the developers of the game that you guys cover are allowed to speak in your echo chamber, but only as long as they agree with you, even though you guys never worked on the game. Okay then. But when they do things that cater to the actual real paying customers, they aren't allowed to speak anymore. How is this going to work when the inevitable sequel to Lords of the Fallen releases? Are you guys just not gonna let the devs speak about their own game then? Because you know that with this gender change, it's going to show up in the sequel, right? You know that. Because if they were then to remove this change now following the massive amount of goodwill they just garnered, it would reflect poorly on them. So the end goal here is what exactly? Keep the subreddit an echo chamber despite the devs and CEO flat out calling you guys out for refusing to allow free speech to exist? As Marek explained in his post about the subreddit, the tired name calling is just lame now. And he's right to say that trust is built on transparency. What these weirdos are doing is ensuring that nobody new joins their subreddit. But maybe that's what they want, because again, I'm noticing since the USAID thing shut off, a lot of the usual brazen types have just shut up completely, almost as if they're no longer bulletproof. Imagine that. And here's what I mean by bias. At the bottom of this Lords of the Fallen post, the mod team says that using Blue Sky is a great alternative to X. Ah, there it is. Of course Blue Sky is better than X in their eyes. Because Blue Sky is where a lot of liberal types, in case you don't know, ran away to once Trump won the election and they couldn't face the heat anymore. Blue Sky, by the way, is a leftist echo chamber. All the former Veilguard writers and devs, they are on there complaining too. You want to know why Blue Sky is popular with these types? Well, as you can see here, because I bring proof that once Trump won, these types ran away to Blue Sky, and then the team there had to quadruple their safety team after there was a massive influx of, how do I say this without getting age restricted? Explicit photos of children were being posted and traded on Blue Sky at an alarming rate, which is obviously very concerning and messed up. Weird how Blue Sky didn't have this problem until the mass exodus of woke individuals suddenly immigrated to their platform. But of course, they'll say there's no connection there. Stop looking at the obvious dots that connect this degeneracy to these people. Then this mod team ended their post with, "We would like to clarify that the developers have only been removed from the mod team. They are still welcome to post in the subreddit, including patch notes, AMAs, and engage in meaningful discourse with the community. This has already been communicated to them. As stated in the post, this decision is not about the developers but concerns the CEO." I have a question. Why would anybody want to communicate with you guys in that subreddit when you're so obviously biased and freakishly rigid like this? You ask me, it would be in CI Games' best interest to just open up their own new subreddit. Yeah, okay, Lords of the Fallen name is taken, I guess. So just call the new subreddit Lords of the Fallen 2 or something else, and then make that the new official subreddit, and then leave these weirdos behind. And then ensure that the subreddit is actually owned by CI Games so that this sort of thing can't happen in the future. Because this is beyond stupid, limiting the devs themselves from speaking out in a place about their own game, the hubris of these types. Look at one of these comments here. The person admits that they're left-leaning and think that this is a gross overreaction by the mod team. How did the mod team respond? Of course, they banned them too. Amazing. So even being left-leaning is not enough for these mods, is that it? So you gotta say yes to everything down the line to a T. I'm telling you guys, this level of gatekeeping is just the beginning. It's gonna become more commonplace as time goes on. Just wait for the next dev team to say that we don't want to put trans stuff in our game, and then another subreddit will suddenly turn into a segregated nation of trans activists overnight. I will bet money that'll happen this year too. It's not like this mentality of the lunatics running the asylum is anything new. Because back in 2020, before people even knew that USAID was directly funding the very propaganda used to destroy free speech with their own tax dollars, we had entire companies banding up together to take on this threat that they claim exists. As Niche Gamer reported back in October 2020, at the height of the pandemic, Electronic Arts, Ubisoft, and more joined ADL to push social justice and combat right-wing extremism in gaming. By the way, the ADL is the Anti-Defamation League, and these sorts of groups are, or I guess were, now funded by USAID as well. No surprise there that about 5 years ago, almost companies like Ubisoft, who are now dying from their low profits and are on the brink of collapse, and then Electronic Arts, which recently reported that they had their lowest finances since 2008, were all a part of this push to combat what they deemed right-wing extremism in gaming. They actually believed that they could control the narrative only for it all to blow up in their faces years later and lead to obvious catastrophic losses. EA of course did Veilguard, and then Ubisoft did all the stuff that Ubisoft usually does, which is slop, and then they also have Shadows on the way next month. These games are all relics of what failed in the industry and pushed concepts that nobody clearly wanted in games. One of these groups that tried to ruin players' free speech under the guise of social activism was a group named No Pixel for Fascists. I'm not kidding, that's actually their name. This group has existed since 2020 and was founded to combat what these types deem right-wing extremism in gaming. And they wanted to censor and deplatform anyone who disagreed with them. No Pixels wanted their movement to target who they deemed to be Yahtzees, misogynists, and racists abroad. One of the co-founders, whose name is Pascal Wagner, stated the mission objective of No Pixel for Fascists. The movement is meant to empower LGBTQ+IA whatever friendly and feminist game culture and wants to push back against its designated targets, both online and offline. Here's more. Wagner specifically mentioned Gamergate as a hate movement that was used by pro-gamer US President Donald Trump and his associates in the run-up to the 2016 election. So Trump is a pro-gamer. Are they just saying things now? Because it sounds like they're just saying things now. This No Pixels for Fascists, also according to Michelle Jansen, who was another supporter of this, and also unironically specializes in language policing, which is woke talk for censorship, again said about right-wing extremism in gaming, people can be accused of being supporters of right-wing ideas even if they don't actually espouse them. It's enough to use right-wing rhetoric, or to allow members of your own community to do so, i.e. not exercise censorship diligently enough. Wow, these types are what we're up against when it comes to things like free speech and the whole Gamergate movement, I guess. And the fact that they believed that YouTubers were far-right fascists and tried to push this idea from 2020 till now, that's insane to me. But it doesn't surprise me that a lot of this was propaganda funded by the very same administration that gaslighted us all into believing that it never existed in the first place. As stated near the end of the article, No Pixel for Fascists was supported by the German government of all things, where it was founded, and by gaming companies like Electronic Arts. How interesting that the very company that okayed Veilguard into existence also supports agendas meant to kill what they call right-wing extremism. Very interesting. As of now, I tried to look into No Pixel for Fascists, but I was also able to find their website as seen here. I'll even show you the URL in case you guys want to go look into it yourself. It's right there in the top left. And when you translate the website, the main part then says, not a single pixel to fascism. In their blog section, it seems that their latest post was in March 2024. That was around the time that Gamergate 2.0 began, which is clearly what they were writing about here. It doesn't seem like there's been much activity for No Pixel for Fascists since March 2024 from a blog perspective anyways. And the website and movement, from my eyes anyway, maybe you guys can find out more, but it looks like it's been largely abandoned. I did check their Twitter page as well, and there hasn't been any activity also since March 2024 where they also posted about Gamergate. But curiously, I went to check who they were following and did discover that No Pixels for Fascists was indeed following none other than Feminist Frequency, which is owned and operated by Anita Sarkeesian, who ruined video games and why we're all in this mess to begin with. Anita's Feminist Frequency has also been ousted to have received well over $500,000 in 1 year alone from government grants, and has also received around $200,000 from other avenues. I covered that about 2 videos ago if I do remember correctly. And I don't know, by the way, if she got these grants from USAID as of now, but it would not surprise me either way. The point here is that all of these freaks are connected. They all tried to destroy video games and media in general to push their moronic agendas. And while remnants still exist, and they have now gone as far as to ban legit developers from the forums of the games they created, it's now up to me and others like you to stay vigilant and keep exposing these things so more people can know about them. Hopefully CI Games opens up their own official Lords of the Fallen subreddit and leaves that tarnished one as an unofficial echo chamber with no connection to the gamer franchise going forward. As for the exposure of USAID giving billions to DEI initiatives to ruin everything that we love, it's not surprising to find out that, but it is disappointing either way. The amount of damage that has been done by USAID's immoral use of funds to create woke propaganda is going to be felt by the world for years to come. The damage that this has wrought on the youth is a concern alone that don't think for a second that this movement is completely dead. Sure, this version is, yes, absolutely, but these types always will find a way to rise from the ashes like the undead monsters that they are. And it's up to all of us to ensure that this time, they don't come back with a vengeance. Because the next time these types are in power, I don't think we're going to even get a second chance at saving ourselves if I'm being honest. So, let's make sure we don't miss, okay? Thank you for watching, subscribe, stay vigilant, and keep asking questions, and I'll see you next time.